Dialogues. I'm Captain Preetham Madhukar, an elite performance coach for entrepreneurs, executives, students, athletes, just about anyone who wants to become a high performer. I'm also a TEDx speaker and author of best-selling Amazon best-selling book Three Culprits: Laziness, Fear and Doubt. Thank you for joining me on this channel. I have an amazing guest today, Arun Iyer, who is a management leader and a consultant with over 13 years of experience in building products and features on various mobile apps, websites, B2B, B2C. He's an industry speaker, a visiting professor for at IIM Calcutta, IIM Tirchy, and he's also on the core team of the NASCOM DeepTech vertical with the Prime Minister's Skill India initiative to upskill over 50,000 product managers in India. So thank you, Arun, for taking time out and being here, to share your perspective on how people are changing, evolving to this new times.
Thank you so much, Captain, and good evening to all of the listeners on the stream. Thank you very much for having me here, and great introduction. As you know, that's just half the story. Just like a duck swimming on the water. There's furious work and furious chaos that goes on beneath the surface, but over the surface, everything seems to be gliding very smoothly. So we'll
Yeah,
talk about a little of all of that and how the world is changing, how the world of work is changing, and so
yeah.
on.
Superb, superb. So I would also like to thank all the viewers and listeners who have may have tuned in now. Thank you so much for taking time out, and I hope you get a lot of amazing insights, breakthroughs, or anything that you're looking for. And please feel free to drop your question in the chat box. Arun and I would be happy to take some of them and share some thoughts and perspective from our side. So, Arun, to start off, you're involved in this, especially the Skill India initiative, the Prime Minister's office, and especially with regard to building product managers and such a huge volume. So, even before we go on and build that kind of skill sets, what kind of challenges that have you been noticing, or the industry leaders have been noticing?
Absolutely. So let's take a look at the background, right? So uh, India has come of age and has proven itself to be a global software services heavyweight. Yes, there are a lot of software services behemoths, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, and so on and so forth. And these are global leaders. So somewhere in, say, in Europe or somewhere in South America, if a company needs any software services, they do reach out to these companies. They are global leaders. Just like if you need to do search, you go to Google. It's a global leader in search, right? So the Prime Minister's vision with Skill India as well as Make in India in general is that, okay, how do we move India from being a primarily software services centered hub to a more software product centered hub, which means how can we have the next Microsoft, Google, SAP, Oracle, and so on, the ones that sell software, come out from India. And after a lot of analysis, after a lot of deep dive, we found that there is a large skilling issue. There's a large skill gap, and we have skill gaps in every domain. We need better engineers, we need better product managers, we need better designers, we need better everything, right? So that's when he has given. Divided up the task and given it to several organizations to run certain programs, right? And this is where I came in and said, hey, along with NASCOM, we came in and said, okay, let's take up the role of upskilling 50,000 product managers, world class, top of the line product managers in the next couple of years. Now, coming to the point on how do we see this play out in India? What is the mentality, or how is industry perceiving this? I think one of the challenges that lingers on in Indian entrepreneurs, in Indian enterprises, is that because of a period of uncertainty and whatever different kinds of policies and all till probably the late 80s, early 90s, maybe even till 2000s, we've been in rather an order taking mode,
Mm,
right? You never know that if someone puts in, say, 500 crores of capital to start a startup, what is it going to do? Is it even going to survive, or will the regulatory environment or will some macro environment change so drastically that I might lose all of that money, right?
mm,
So that fear is lingering in people's heads, and hence they tend to stay in a order taking mode, saying, hey, I don't care whether my product is really successful, whether people use it or not, so long as someone is ready to pay me for it, right?
Mm.
So now that macro environment and the dynamics have changed drastically. We do see a lot of unicorns come up in India. They also have a lot more to go to mature and so on. So it takes a fair amount of coaching and effort to convince top industry leaders that you need to move away from this order taking mode to feeling empowered and say, hey, I can do it. I can build products which will be world class, which will be loved and
Mm.
adopted, which will be delightful products that will be adopted by the world.
So that's, I think, at the top level, that's beautifully captured, the problem statement. But on the ground level, what are your thoughts, especially with new students coming out, batch after batch, they're passing out of colleges, right? At the entry level, what can be done? Then we'll come to mid and senior level too, right? At
Right.
the entry level, what can be done so that we, not just at now, but say 20 years from now, we have a great pipeline of.
Absolutely, absolutely. This has so many aspects. Let's just unpack some of them, right? The first is that, understandably, students, they might say that they are passionate about some field or the other. They might say that they are passionate about product management or design or engineering or something, but understandably, they are geared towards a higher pay package,
Mm.
right? Because they incur a lot of cost in their higher education and so on and so forth. So they tend to go there. Now, this means that students tend to train for the interview and not the job,
Mm.
right? They come to school, or they come, when I say school, I mean college, any kind of education system, and they ask, hey, what do I need to do to crack the interview,
Mm.
and not what do I need to do to be successful in my job later, right?
Mm.
I need to get into an investment bank, I need to get into a big product management firm, whatever. How do I crack this? I think it takes a level of maturity of 5 or 6 years to say that, hey, okay, interviews are part of the game, succeeding in your job is a different one, and actually doing something that you can enjoy and do for a long time, as opposed to something that can be very painful and very stressful. Yeah, keep all of those separated and try to balance all of them. That maturity comes a little later. So as far as students are concerned, one, they seem to be going after buzzwords. So they
Mm.
say, hey, we have so until 3 years ago, it was, hey, what can we do with product management and blockchain, or with cryptocurrency specifically, right?
Mm.
And that kind of went boom and bust. The underlying technology and the principles still remain, but because that has become taboo, there's no talk about that anymore. Similarly, with metaverse, for example, that was a big buzzword at some point of time, kind of has died down a bit now, and people have stopped talking about it. So I would advise students that build the fundamental principles of learning how to identify a problem, how to design. These are hard and they sound very abstract, but there are exercises that as a coach or as a professor I can do to help them develop these skills, and those are what will help you, one, find out what you want to do in life and become a better product manager, right? So that's on the entry level candidate side. Do prepare how to crack interviews as well, because it doesn't matter how much theory and philosophy you finally need to be able to crack the interview, right? So there are certain structures for that as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, of course, it does. And I'm also thinking, sometimes when on the ground level, I'm a small startup that way, and I also help a lot of business owners to some way make sense of their decision making. And one of the challenges that I see is when they put out a word to get good people into their organization, and sometimes I can see uh, my next door neighboring companies which are struggling to get people, the right people. And what amazes me is we have such a big population, such a huge volume of people being churned out of colleges, but yet the employability is so low, right? I can't employ, even if I get 100 applicants, because the employable workforce is a small percentage. They are missing in many of the skill set. They may have got great GPAs, points, and still it's a struggle. Their communication, their way they carry themselves, reliability and all that. So what is the thought process, or what is happening from a at a macro level on these things?
Great. uh, again, a whole bunch of things to unpack here. One of the fundamental issues here is that until a person comes to the job market throughout their education, they are running a race. So
Mm.
they are evaluated, or their success is determined by their personal performance, and often it is advantageous to cripple the person next to you so that you can get ahead, right?
Mm.
uh, Even if there are group projects and so on that happen in higher education institutions, even in high school and so on, the your rank or so on is determined by your grades, right? So we have 25 years of drilling in saying that, hey, you got to study, don't worry about everything else. You got to outperform. The only thing that matters for success is your input. And then they come to the workforce and they find that, hey, okay, now my team needs to succeed. I need to do whatever it takes for my product or my company to succeed. It's no good if I do a great job and the person sitting next to me, my colleague, is not able to do their work. If the product fails, then I'm going to get fired as well as
Mm.
my colleague, right? So that's a big mental shift of, okay, now we need to play a collaborative game, and people don't get it, right? So that is one issue which post hiring, a lot of companies find that, hey, people aren't able to be good team players because they simply don't have that coaching for the first 10 15 years of life. The other thing that you mentioned about people having great GPAs but still being unemployable and so on is more of a problem for the employers. What do I mean by that? If you look back 15 years ago, data science, ML did not even exist as a field of study or a field of research in Indian schools, right? Now look at what's happened. Data science has probably gone through boom and bust,
Mm.
right? You never know 15, 20 years later what kind of career options will be available and so on, right?
Mm.
So for parents or for anyone who's trying to figure out what their children are going to be doing 10 years later, don't try to don't try to look that far
Trying
in the
to
future. Just like,
prophesize it, yeah.
yes, right.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like in 2005, you didn't know that ChatGPT or AI or even smartphones would exist. You have no idea what 2030 or 2035 is going to look like. Don't bother about that. Rather, try to empower your child, your ward, with the fundamental skills of how to think critically, how to communicate effectively. This is another big problem that you would have noticed, Captain, and several other companies, that even if people are technically sound, if they can't land the message that they want to land to the listener, right? It's not only about great English. I have met a lot of folks whose English is superb, but they cannot land the message. They can't get their point across correctly to the listener.
Mm.
If this is the kind of situation, then the company is doomed. It's bound
Mm.
to fail, right? You need to be able to sell well. You need to be able to you need to be able to communicate well, and so on. So these are some fundamental skills that that people need to be equipped with during their formative years. Coming to the point of how are employers looking at this kind of churn, India still tends to say throw people at the problem, right? If something's not working, let's just hire two more interns, let's just hire five more people, let's put a call center to call up and do sales and so on. I remember there was a talk by Kunal Shah of Grid in one of my previous employers. He had just delivered a lecture where I remember one of his lines where he says, having a large team is like being overweight. It's a sign of inefficiency. It's
Mm.
not a sign of growth, right?
Yeah.
Don't grow around the middle. Grow in the chest, right? So yes, so don't throw people at a problem which technology should and can solve, because technology is much better at solving it, right? Imagine that you say, hey, I want to travel from Bangalore to Mumbai, and I don't want to use machines. I'm not going to take a flight. I'm not going to take a train or a car or something. I'm going to ride a palki, and instead of having four palanquin bearers, I'm going to have 40. It's not going to be as efficient or fast or anything. It doesn't matter how many people you throw at the problem, right?
Mm.
So there are situations where humans simply don't have the capability. It's better left to a machine, right? So this kind of change in the mindset is again required for Indian entrepreneurs. Again,
Yeah.
over to you. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, superb. And what kind of, I mean, what I since I've helped people become high performers in some ways, right? And it's a time taking. People realize that, okay, to become a high performer, to build that mindset takes time. And you rightly put about how the volume is not just the thing criteria, that if you are efficient, if you have 10 people who are efficient, can beat the 50 who are just walking around doing nothing, right? And just filling space and volume. And coming to the proactive strategies, what
Mhm.
kind of strategies can individuals, especially young workforce, can implement in their lives so that they are more efficient, more top performers?
Absolutely. Let me just finish the thought on the efficiency part in the beginning. I'm kind of right with the numbers, maybe a few digits here and there. WhatsApp, when it got acquired by Facebook
Okay.
several years ago for $19.5 billion, it was the largest acquisition, tech acquisition at that time. It had only 38 employees, right? So
Okay.
$500 million valuation per employee is what they were
38.
going for, right?
Wow, that's something.
So yeah, so it's just insane, and that's what. So just 38 employees managing a set of servers and an app which billions of people are sending trillions of messages
Mm,
every day, right? Just mind blowing. That is because they had a lean and efficient team which
mm,
solved one very hard problem very well, right? So
mm,
that was on that part. Now coming to the point on how people early in their career can set themselves up for success. How should they manage their career? It is a reality today that we are living in a post industrialized world. So the first post industrialized world was that of having fungible people in an assembly line. So
mm,
literally in a manufacturing floor, you could put anyone onto some part of the assembly line and say, here are your 10 instructions, keep doing them repeatedly day after day. That kind of got abstracted to organizations, knowledge organizations, which became service organizations, saying, hey,
mm,
you are supposed to write these 10 lines of code, or you're supposed to generate this report, just keep
mm,
doing it now and then, right? And probably until the 80s or the 90s, there was this mentality of, hey, I study for 25 years, then I work for 40 years based off of the study of the 25 years, and
mm,
then I retire, right? Often most people would probably stick to their job throughout for 40 years. Maybe they would switch once in their lifetime, right? That reality is no longer true. It's hard to find even CEOs who will stay at a job for 3 years. Forget about employees, right?
mm,
So it's a reality that young workers will switch their jobs multiple times. You might easily have 10 plus employers in your span of 30 35 years of a career. One. Second, uh, it's a reality that there are several job losses and layoffs and so on and things happening. Anyone could get affected by that. So first is to build some emotional and mental resilience to know that, hey, this is, consider it like a natural disaster. You don't ask, why did the tsunami happen to me? Why did the drought happen to me? Just like I don't ask, why did the layoff happen to me? It's a macroeconomic natural calamity in a
mm.
sense. It just happened. Just move on. Right? Pick up the pieces, invest what you can, but don't take it personally. As in your self worth is not harmed by that. So
That's good.
that's I think an emotional strength that young workers need to develop. Second is, just like for tsunami, you take insurance and so on, or you need to reinforce your house against an earthquake or other natural calamities. You need to reinforce and safeguard your career. So one thing that I have consciously been developing, and I found a lot of resonance with other colleagues over the last 2 years, is treating your career as a portfolio. So, just like in your financial portfolio, you have some equity, some debt, some gold, some real estate, something else. And at any point of time, a couple of them will be doing well, a couple of them will be not doing that well, but overall things will go well, right? Compare that to, say, most financial planning or retirement planning from the 80s, where people would just put their money into an FD and forget about it, right?
Mm,
Even now, equity is not very well penetrated. 30 years ago, it was not at all well penetrated, right? So, so there was a huge risk that if interest rate falls, then your retirement plan is gone because you're stuck on debt, right?
mm,
The same kind of risk applies in terms of a job. If I tie my identity to my role in my organization, I say that Arun Iyer is senior product manager at company X.
mm,
What if that role goes away? As we already discussed, there could be layoffs, there could be whatever, the company could shut down, something could happen. So that sense of identity that I am this role at this company might disappear, what do you do then? Instead, treat your career as a portfolio and have several different things. I personally, I have a role as a senior leader at a DeepTech AI/ML startup. I'm a visiting professor at several institutes. I work with NASSCOM as a leading one of the charters there. I am deliver lectures on the Mahabharat. I am a product management consultant. I am a guitarist. So I just add more and more layers, saying that something or the other will work. Even if one or two of these aspects go down, something else will make up for it, right? So I highly advise young people who are entering the workforce today to consciously manage their career and not just let it drift along on the whims and fancies of their employer. Take control, just like you took control of your studies and your education and so on. Take control of your career.
Yeah, I think brilliantly put, Arun. And just to welcome the viewers who may have just tuned in late, I have Arun Iyer with me, an amazing speaker. He's a visiting professor at IIM Tirchy, Calcutta, and many other very well-known institutions. He's also the NASSCOM Deep Tech, chapter leading the Prime Minister's Skill India initiative. And we've been having an amazing session. If you missed it, then don't forget to watch the recording as well. It'll be put up on all the platforms. So, Arun, continuing with this conversation, you brought in a nice way. We've actually transitioned to the mid-level,
Right.
your content, and coming to that, I can see at the mid level, the entry level we spoke about. At the mid level, there is, after you matured in, you've been in the job for some time, I can see people becoming complacent, both in their drive to succeed further and also in their own performances, in what they can deliver. Maybe they have more potential. They are like, Chalta hai, just little bit settling down, everything is going hunky dory. So, what thoughts can you share for them?
Sure. Again, the world is changing really fast. So traditionally, people at the mid level tend to become supervisors, and there was this theory X kind of thinking, which had the idea that if workers, new workers, junior workers are not constantly supervised and somebody's breathing down the neck saying, hey, are you doing your job well, are you making any mistake, and dinging them for it, until you do that, they will not do their job well. They will take every chance possible to shirk, right? So what has happened is too many mid-level managers have transitioned to that phase where they become supervisors and people managers, and they lose some hard skills. Most knowledge economy companies don't need that. For example, again, referring back to a couple of decades ago, it was very common for people to evaluate the seniority of a person by asking, and this often comes up in chai conversations where they ask, hey, how many people report into you? So someone says, 500 people report into me. Hey, okay, very senior leader. Someone else says 25 people report into me. Okay, you're less senior, right? Now, it's very common at large tech companies to have very senior people who are individual contributors. They could be a principal or a distinguished architect whose job is just to think and make documents. They might not have a team reporting into them, right? So what I'm trying to say is this: the middle management needs to get out of this zone of, hey, my worth or my value is determined by how many people report into me and I supervise them. To how do I contribute and make and deliver value for the organization, right? The other very important thing, just look back upon your own career, your bosses. You will remember both extremes. You will remember your great bosses and you will remember your worst bosses, right? And the great bosses tend to give you challenging work which you will do with a couple of mistakes, and they will guard you against those mistakes. They'll say, okay, you make a mistake, I am there to support you, right? And by that you learn and grow. So there are some very good techniques that middle management can adopt to empower and upskill their team. First, mental change that is required, that is, don't be threatened by your team members. If I see my team member doing better than me, I can go to my boss and say, boss, my team is amazing, they are doing everything you asked for, so now give me more work, give me a promotion. Rather than, hey, my team member is doing better than me, what if he replaces me tomorrow? I don't need to worry about that. There is enough work, there's enough revenue to be generated, and so on. So there'll always be work. Having a great performing team is an asset. If they are better than you, it's an even better asset. You can go to your boss and say, "Look, my team doesn't need me anymore. I can take on an even bigger role." Right. So that's a mental change that can be done for middle management. The other part, coming back to what we spoke about, studying for a fixed amount of time and then working for again a fixed amount of time, that is no longer true. You cannot rest on the education of the first 25 years and say, "I'm going to sail through the next 40 years based on that." You
Mm.
have to go back to school. You have to learn. So there is a flowery term that is often thrown about saying, "Hey, continuous learning." I love learning and relearning. I don't think people really mean it. They just say it because
It
it
was
sounds,
saying sake.
yeah, it just sounds fun.
It's
But it's
nice
very
to sound,
important.
on the
Yes,
first
yes.
year.
And I'm open to learning and so on. It's very important to take it in exactly two aspects. One is go back to school. And when I say school, it doesn't have to be an institution. Take the courses on Coursera or Udemy or whatever. Take hard skill courses. So, textbook basically. Go back and learn from a textbook and consciously develop the soft skills which are often not taught in textbooks on how to negotiate, how to work with a hard boss, how to work with an uncooperative uh, co-worker, how to upskill your team, how to empower them, so on and so forth. These are often not taught in textbooks. They are more HROB kind of resources. So on both these fronts, middle management needs to upgrade every couple of years. If you ask engineers, they'll tell you that a new technology like say React or whatever, Python is probably somewhat older, whatever, or Java also. Earlier technologies used to last 10 years. Now they barely last 2 to 3 years. They at some point they used to last 5 years, but after that the knowledge is obsolete, right? Just like that, middle management's knowledge becomes obsolete quite fast. It's important for them to go and retrain like they were a student. So
Yeah.
go back, sit at a desk, take a course, go back to these executive education programs in all of the MBA schools and technical schools and so on. Get the hard skills and the soft skills to stay relevant. Otherwise, it unfortunately and there's an Economic Times article from about a week ago that says there is an oversupply of unemployed CXOs, right?
Okay.
Too many layoffs happened.
Mm.
CXOs found themselves, one, they must have had a huge salary and other employers are not able to match that.
Mm.
Two, they may not have upskilled and stayed relevant to the new skills that are
Mm.
required in the game. So try not to find yourself in that position. Stay
Yeah.
upskilled. Yes,
What in a way you spoke about people stepping out of their comfort zone in some ways, right?
absolutely.
Doing the uncomfortable things. And I also realized that people, if they stepped into some sort of a cross domain, trying to learn other domains while their core was also there, help them get into that CXO pipeline, help them get
Right.
into that top leadership kind of mindset, because now you're not looking at your only, but you're now looking at a bigger spectrum, right? So coming to that, coming now to the top of the chain, what kind of leadership skills has you've looked up to? What kind of uh, good leadership skills and bad leadership skills, if you could share on that in the course of your journey.
Sure. So a couple of them are uh, one, find complementary skills in co-founders, right? So if I'm a great product manager but I'm really bad at tech or I'm really bad at sales, I need a co-founder who's good at tech and I need a co-founder who's good at sales, right? It's no good overlapping. So because of our community, because of our co-workers, we'll end up knowing people who are like us, but
Mm.
they are not good co-founders. You
Mm.
need people who are absolutely unlike you as a good co-founder. So for senior leadership, if you're trying to start a new startup or you're trying to build your leadership team of VPs and execs and so on, try to try to get people with complementary skills. This is one great I'd say great thumb rule for senior leaders to follow. The other Okay. The other couple of things, or the other thing that I would say is trust your team members to do their job,
Mm.
right? Don't hire them and then not let them do their job, right? So if you're hiring a VP of sales and he says, "Look, I uh, I'm going to make my sales pitch, or I'm going to tune it this way. I think we should target a certain market and so on. Assuming I don't know about sales, I should let them do that. And maybe I can question this. Look, have you done your homework? Are you confident that we're going to get this? Can we start out small and then grow? All that is fine, but don't say, look, no, I think we should be doing something else, and override that person. Then what happens is, even senior leaders will feel disempowered, and they'll wait on the top leader as a bottleneck, saying, till this person gives me the sign off, I don't know how to proceed.
Mm.
Right? So let's just wait on a top leader for bottleneck. So I'd say avoid that kind of a situation. The third principle I would say is, being bootstrapped and putting in your own money is the best prioritization exercise. What do I mean by that? If I need to hire someone, right, and I want to put my own money to hire that, I'm going to ensure that the person I interview, I thoroughly speak to them, I work with them, and I first of all ensure that this is exactly the skill that I want to hire. This is
Yeah.
hurting very hard in my organization. I want a designer to do something, or I want a salesperson to do something, I want an engineering manager to do something, as opposed to having too much cash,
Mm.
which often comes from funding rounds and so on. And then there is a tendency to spend on unnecessary stuff, right?
Mm.
Let's hire a VP of AI.
Mm.
Do you really need this person? If it were your own money, would you hire a VP of AI? If the
Right.
answer is no, then don't hire him with the VC money,
Mm.
right? Because what will happen is, it's not just that there's a spend. The spend is the least of the problems. That person is going to come and do something to the organization. They are not going to sit idle, right? They want to come and show impact, so they will come and interfere with the rest of the organization, saying, hey, run this decision by me, or I want to contribute here and there. And
Mm.
after 3 years, you will realize, okay, this was a mistake, we should not have hired this, let's get rid of them. And then you have to re-coach the team or redesign the team to now work without that person, right? It's a very expensive not just in money. You might lose your place in the game, you might lose the race entirely if you lose
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are some of the thoughts I'd say for senior leaders. Any thoughts from you?
I think brilliantly captured. I think the most of the thing comes down to good decision making, execution there, and I think having a sounding board, especially at CXO level, CEO level, founder level, can be a game changer in the way they are going to take, because the team itself can only push boundaries of the CXO, that much, because they are going to be a little bit wary of their own job. Somewhere the fear will come in, but having an external coaches, mentors can be a big game changer, because they're going to bluntly ask you, they're going to ask you some tough questions which can certainly make things clearer, as if it's a team sport. Many times one of the things I've seen is, especially small startups, they bring in their own I would say ego in some ways, that they want to go and win this. I said, look at it as a team sport, right?
Absolutely,
Look at it
absolutely.
as a team sport, that you want to win this. The goal is not you win, the goal is you win the game, right?
Right.
Not about
Not
you
the
win,
battle, win the war.
you did it together, and that's the end game, right? And if somebody is going to come with a map to you and tell you where it is, then take it. Why
Right,
figure? Why? It's like asking directions, right? You can take someone and get to the point fast, or say, I'll figure it out, and keep going in circles and circles.
right, right. The other, I think, another great point you made about external coaches is, it is, so there are a lot of blind spots in our way of communication, in our emotional responses and things, that they are blind spots, we're not aware of them, right? So it's very helpful to have someone, a pair of eyes, who can sit in the room, observe a senior leader speak to their team, and give candid feedback. It can be harsh, but it comes from a good place. It comes from a good place in the heart. So saying things like, hey, Arun, to this person, you said this.
Yeah.
You cut them off mid sentence or whatever, and that came across as rude, or that came across as you don't care. You need someone to say this
Yeah.
to you as to any leader, right? And that person must have the confidence that they have nothing to lose. This is their job, to give this harsh feedback. Yeah, having a subordinate in the room saying, "Please coach me on my leadership skills, on my communication skills," is not going to work, because that subordinate is afraid that if they give you hard feedback and you react violently, they might lose their job, right? So
Yeah.
it has to be an external coach who comes and says, look, there is this is what I observed. Next time, please try this. So it has to be actionable, saying next time
Yeah.
when you feel the urge to cut someone off, hold on,
Mm.
raise your hand or make some indication saying that you want to speak, so that other person feels that, yeah, okay, let's give this person a chance to speak, or whatever, right? Whatever could be it could be any form of behavioral or emotional response. But having an external pair of eyes, literally like a camera,
Mm.
observe what is happening, observe the dynamics of the room, and be able to review it with notes is a terrific boon, is a terrific coaching
I mean,
tool.
it's a massive advantage. I feel like recently I had a client, and he was waiting between. There was a decision which was between 25 lakhs and 45 lakhs here to make,
Right, right,
right? And he was ideating on this for weeks together, this or that, this or that. One, should I spend less or not? And it took us about half an hour to 45 minutes of a session to get clarity what was the right way to go, right? And immediately started taking action on that.
right,
Now, time lost, and he could have lost a lot of money,
right.
right? So that's the game changer that can happen, I think, by having people who can help you with decision making, because in the end, at the top level, it's all about decision making, taking those fast decisions, being really in depth, and then executing on that, right? And bringing in all those leadership skill sets we spoke about, and delegating well, and all those kind of things. So it was good really talking. And I just want to know, before we wrap it up today, is just couple of one or two questions probably, is what is the future of work? What kind of skills that people should be looking for? What is the future of work from your perspective, say
Absolutely.
5 years, 10
So
years from now?
we did kind of touch upon it, saying that the future of work is not employee in an organization, full stop. It's going to be a portfolio. It's going to be like a Swiss Army knife. Uh, People have to focus on developing skills consciously. Those skills could be hard skills, soft skills, public speaking skills, uh, artistic skills, even humor, writing better, making presentations, and so on and so forth. So develop these skills and build a skill stack like a Swiss Army knife, saying,
Mm.
I have all of these skills. I can use one or all of them as and when the situation demands. So that's one. The future of work is going to be a lot more gig economy.
Mm.
People will, even in a longish career at a company, it's not one role or one job that exists for 3 years. It's actually four projects. You
Mm.
work on one project, you deliver it, and then you move on to another project in the same company. It's actually a new job. It just
Mm.
happens to be the same employer, same name on your
Mm.
payslip. That's all,
Mm.
right? So being aware of this dynamic that's happening in the work is very crucial. I'd also say that as a mental shift, and it's hard, right? Start taking up things that are new. You may or may not be interested in them. I'll take an example myself. I randomly started reading the Mahabharata several years ago. I got an invitation from an NGO to deliver some Mahabharata lectures. There's no remuneration or whatever. I just thought, okay, let's just try it. It's an interesting thing. Let's just try it, right? So and for the last couple of years, I've been delivering several Mahabharata lectures to children. Now, this does not give me remuneration, but it has now given me the confidence that tomorrow I could be a speaker upon mythology or upon teachings from the Mahabharata for remuneration if I need to, right?
Mm.
So, the advice I'd give to workers and how the work will shape up or how you can make that mental shift is take up new challenges just for the heck of it. Don't look at what is in it for me right now. There may not be anything in it for you right now, but if you put in the effort and keep honing that skill, eventually you'll become an expert at it, and there will be something in it for you,
Yeah.
maybe a couple of years down the line, right?
Yeah.
So yes, those are just some last
I think
thoughts.
that's brilliantly put. It reminds me of my own journey, the skill sets that I have. People are surprised that I picked up this. I said, when I had time, I would just sit and learn something new. I didn't really think how it's going to add up, but somewhere down the line, it started to all add up in some
Absolutely.
ways, right? It made me start parallel businesses because of that. And so, in a way, I think I really liked your Swiss Army analogy. I really found it brilliantly captured, very nicely, succinctly put there. So, before we wrap up, one final question: What should we be worried about?
What should we be worried about? We should be worried about losing our humanity, right? And I say that in earnest. We are currently, there's a lot of fear around, will technology, will AI or machines replace our jobs? Yes, they will. Think of, so a good example, cartoon I remember seeing somewhere where two horses are talking to each other, and one horse says, hey, to the other horse, hey, there's this thing called a car that has just come up, should I be worried about it?
Mm.
The other horse says, dude, for the last 1,000 years, there have been wars, there have been chariots, there have been armor, there have been new technological advancements, writing, whatever, whatever. But we have always been employed. Horses are never going to go away. People are going to be riding horses for the rest of their life. Now look what happened, right? Who rides a horse, right? So, like, it's in that very same way, we have outsourced the work of our legs to cars. We have outsourced the work of our backs to animals, and now to machines, and so on and so forth. So eventually, we'll be outsourcing the work of our brain to a machine. That's okay. So a machine is relentless. You cannot outwork it. It doesn't matter. You can work 15 hours a day. One, you will get tired and you will make mistakes. The machine won't. So don't try to outwork a machine. What will be required is for humans to stay human, that is, be able to connect with other humans, be able to take a consultative approach, do creative things, that for example, what can you use a machine for, or just enjoy your own hobbies and passions. If you like sketching, if you like playing music, enjoy it. And trust me, there will be a lot of people who will pay you and who will be willing to give you time and admiration for it, right? Can a machine play better guitar or faster guitar than any human? Of course it can. But you still want to watch a human
Perform.
do it, right? Would you watch a machine juggle balls? No, I want to watch a human juggle balls, because that is where the fun is, right? Obviously, machines can juggle balls much, and they'll do it error free. They'll do it flawlessly, right? So be more human. Connect with humans. Be invested in the things that you enjoy and that give you fulfillment. That will automatically bring people and attract people towards you. I think that is what I would want to leave as a parting thought. Don't try to outcompete the machines.
Superb, superb. I mean, thank you so much for sharing all these insights, wisdom. I hope the listeners, viewers had a great time, got some insights. Please do connect with us, and don't forget to like this video, share it forward, leave a comment. It inspires me, inspires the guest, all of us. And stay connected so we can keep bringing such amazing speakers to the platform, and share them, share their insights with you. Thank you so much for taking time. And thank you, Arun, for taking time out, for being here with me and having this conversation.
Thank you so much, Captain, and thank you so much for all the viewers and listeners.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Good evening.